Hello again, Art 1-2. Welcome to part 2 of 1 Point Perspective. Okay, so we ended with aligning all of our boxes to the vanishing point using lines of convergence. And remember, during the Renaissance, there's mathematical equations that exist for how, slanted these lines should be, etc. All right. So for the letters, we have a lot more to align for the letters. There's more detail. So we are going to do the curved one first. So we're going to do the O. And so I'm lining up my ruler with the vanishing point, and then I'm just sliding it until I hit the outermost curve of the O. And then I'm going to draw my line of convergence. On the top part, so I'm making sure my vanishing point's on the top of the ruler. Same thing, except for I would hit that box. So I'm going to draw it, but I'm going to stop. So I've stopped once I hit that box. So for the J, we do have a curve to deal with. And then I'm going to do this curve as well. So it looks like we're looking up underneath the J, because we have the horizon line or eye level and you're looking up at it. So I'm also going to do the corners that point to the vanishing point. Like this one, I'm going to try for that one and see what happens, and this one for sure. So when I hit itself, I'm going to stop. And then here, I can see a tiny, tiny sliver. So I'm just going to stop. So for the P, I do have a point, or it might line up with the curve. So I'm going to line up with my vanishing point and see. Double checking, double checking. Okay, so it will line up with the point of the P at the top. And then we have a curve to line up with. The outermost curve, the part that curves out the most. Okay, we do have an inside little corner. So I'm just going to stop when I hit the other side of the inside of the P. So that little line does go to the vanishing point, but I just stop. Okay, so then this one, I'll just stop. Okay, so for the M, we have many. So we have this one, I'll look at that one, this one, this one, this one, this one. That one may not line up. Okay, double checking is the vanishing point and the point at which I'm lining it to on the same side as the ruler. Okay, so the bottom part. I'm going to try this little point and see if I could see it. No, it would just line up with itself. But if it was like way down here, then maybe I would actually be able to draw that line. So line it up and see, does it line up? Okay. So now we're ready to start cutting them off to make them look like cubes or block letters. And so we're going to cut off the lines of convergence so that we have a shorter distance or depth. When you cut off, you want to make sure if you're doing a vertical side, it's vertical, and you're lining your ruler up with the top or bottom edge of your paper. I'm going to line up with my bottom. And then if I'm cutting it off here, then I'm going to line up my ruler with the side edge of my paper, and then I'm going to double check my spacing all around. Okay, so we're first going to cut off this one. So I'm lining up my ruler with the edge of the paper. I'm double checking my spacing, and it's parallel to the original side. Parallel. We'll do some labeling on this one too. Okay, then I'm going to line up with my original side here, and I'm lined up over here, and I'm just going to slide it down until it meets that corner here. But before I just draw that line, I'm double checking. Does my spacing look the same here? It doesn't. Does my spacing look the same there? Not really. So let me tilt my ruler a little bit. Okay, I'm still lined up on the side. Okay, now I'm checking my spacing here and here. That looks the same. I'm checking my spacing here and here, okay? It looks about the same. Okay. So those are parallel. So we have parallel height cutoffs, and we have parallel width cutoffs. And I'm going to just draw a little arrow. And so are you. Parallel, meaning the same. So it means the same in math as it does in art. It's the same. It's the same verticalness, it's the same horizontalness, and then we're going to get into angled lines as well. Okay, so we're going to cut off this O. And when you cut off a curved item, you have parallel curves, but they're called offset curves. So I'm going to hold my pencil in the middle or towards the end. I'm going to kind of trace this curve so my arm remembers the curve. I'm gaining some muscle memory. And then I'm going to reproduce that same curve. And so then that looks kind of weird how it's cut off. And so for the curves, you have to, it's called countersink, where you like line up the curve with itself again, a little bit past the lines of convergence. So then I can clean that up. Okay. So if I can see this much on the outside, as far as depth goes, I would be able to see about the same on the inside. So now I'm going to cut off in the inside. And I'm going to give myself a little mark. Okay, about this much. I'm going to trace this curve. And I'm going to reproduce that curve. And then I'm just going to kind of countersink it on my own. So then I have the inside of the O. And since it's to the left of the vanishing point, I can see the right-hand side of the outside. And then I would erase my lines of convergence. So let me label this part real fast. So these curves are called offset curves. And then where it curves into itself, so let me use orange. So here, where it curves into itself, that is called a countersunk curve. So you will keep this as reference when we work on our 2-point perspective one as well. Okay, so let's cut off the boxes and get a little bit more practice doing that. So I'm going to cut off the vertical side. So I'm going to line my ruler up at the bottom, completely lined up. I'm going to line my ruler up with the original side. I'm going to slide it over. Maybe I'll make it a little bit deeper this time. It has more distance or depth. But before I cut that off, I'm making sure, is my ruler lined up here at the bottom? Yes. And I'm checking my spacing. Is it the same here as it is here? Yes? Okay, that's probably a vertical line. If it were like this, then it's not the same. And this is not a vertical line. Okay. On the top, I'm going to line my ruler up along the side, but I'm also checking my spacing with my horizon line and checking my spacing in general. Like, is it the same? Okay, then I'm going to slide my ruler up. And I'm double checking my spacing with my ruler and the horizon line. Okay, I'm double checking my spacing here and here. Does it look the same? Okay, then I'll cut it off. So that's a little bit of a deeper block. Okay, on the other side, I'm gonna line my ruler up at the bottom, line it up with the original side, slide it over. Then I'm gonna double check, is my spacing here and here the same as my ruler lined up? Does my spacing look similar? Yes, okay, cut it off. So let's do the P. That one's a little bit easier. So I do have an offset curve to draw. So I'm going to just kind of trace a little bit. And I'm going to curve it into itself for a countersunk curve. Okay, then down here, I'm going to use my ruler. So anytime you have a vertical, you're going to use your ruler, or if you have a horizontal. So I'm going to slide it out, double checking my spacing, lined up at the bottom. And I'm going to do the inside as well, so it all lines up. Okay, then I have a little countersunk curve in the inside. And then I would erase and clean up my drawing for things I don't need. Okay. Let's do the M and the J. All right, so if you have a diagonal line like the side of the M, well then you're just gonna have to eyeball it and try your best. So I'm gonna line it up the original side, slide it over, cut it off. So I do a bigger side to start out with. Okay, then I'm gonna line up at the top, slide it up, and then cut it off, cut it off. In the inside here, I have that angle, and so I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to slide it over. So that is a parallel angle. So even with angled lines, they're still parallel. So we have parallel, 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 parallel. Okay, we're going to do that in the inside as well. Actually, so this back of this M would be like all the way back here. It would go behind. So I'm just going to leave that. Okay. So for the J, we have an offset curve. I'm going to curve it into itself. Okay, so I look at this depth, this distance, and I want it to be about the same on the underside of the J. So I'm going to eyeball. Okay, that looks about the same. And then I have this tiny little sliver, which if yours is bigger, then that is fine. Tiny little sliver to cut off. Okay, so before you say you're done, you're going to leave all the labeling, but you're going to erase the lines of convergence you no longer need. So after I've cut everything off, I'm going to go back and carefully erase. And if you can still see them, then that means you're drawing too heavy and dark. And on our next drawing, you're really going to have to try to draw lighter. So I can still kind of see mine, although I am drawing a little bit darker so you can see. You want your lines to be super light as humanly possible, because we're going to have a ton of erasing on our next drawing. And we don't want to see all the ghost lines of what we had drawn previously. It will be part of your craftsmanship grade on the next project. Okay, so I'm going to leave the O and the box alone, but this box I will. Clean up, and the J I will clean up. So there's letters and boxes in 1 point perspective. Remember that everything lines up to that 1 point. We don't have any lines going all over the place. Okay, so now you're going to take a picture of this and put it into your Google Doc. Okay, congratulations on finishing your second practice, part 2.